this is a chance for anybody who's new to introduce themselves for about a minute and say who they are and where they're from. If you're new, go ahead and raise your hand. But I'm going to kick things off with Jerry Wind. He's got an announcement that might be of interest to some folks here.
Thanks. So I'm editing a special issue of a new publication, Management Business Review. The publication is a coalition actually, and sponsored by over 10 universities and a number of companies. And the special issue is on AI for customer engagement. And we have two types of papers. We have short papers of application. If you have an application using AI that led to enhanced customer engagement, send it to us. If you have a thought leadership paper that you would like to share with some innovative new ideas in the area, would love to hear from you. I have two co-editors with me on the issue. One is Jerry Dickler, who is the VP and General Manager of Google Ads. And then Margarita Pagani, who is a professor of digital and artificial intelligence and marketing at Schema in the business school in Paris. And we would love to get your application. So if any interest, just let me know and we'll be glad to send you the call for paper. And thanks.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I put Jerry's LinkedIn in the chat, but Jerry, if you want to drop any website or email address, feel free to do that.
You know, I will send you the call for paper. If you can put it on, will be great. Okay.
Great.
Thank you. That's great. I appreciate it.
All right, Shane, go. 1 minute.
Hi there. It's my first time joining. My name is Shane Jenkins. I'm a project manager with HeroX, which is one of many crowdsourcing platforms out there. But I heard about this group from a colleague and just was happy to hear in on what you guys talk about.
And I'll just say we work with Shane a lot, and he's doing some great work at HeroX. So.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm gonna get the name wrong. Yep, go. Thanks.
Hi. Hi guys. Good morning. My name is Sujit and I'm from Cochin, India. And currently I've been in the outsourcing space for a fairly long time, working with TCS and IBM, etc. And right now I'm actually founding a platform for moving outsourcing to the cloud. And so the end-to-end journey of doing contract, the job definition to scope definition to team building to project execution on one platform called Gigsboard. So
welcome. We met recently. Yeah, leave your information in the chat and let's get you connected. Go ahead, Rich.
Interesting, Sujit, by the way. We do quite a lot of this sort of from outsourcing to out-tasking to skill sourcing. We're seeing quite a lot of movement in that paradigm. Right. Be really interested in what you're doing. Drop me a note and let's connect.
Absolutely. I will do that, Barry, right?
Yeah, Barry Matthews, yeah.
Right, will do.
Go ahead, Rich.
Hi guys, I'm Rich Wilson. I'm in sunny Glasgow in Scotland. And by the way, can I just say, Connor, that is some tan you've got for someone who's in Dublin. You've either been in fake tan or you have been in holiday. I hope it's holiday. So I'm founder and CEO of Gig.ai. We're a builder of various tech products for the gig economy, including open and internal talent marketplaces. And we're about a really exciting blockchain product for freelancers. I spent 12 years of my career at Allegiance Group as an executive director between Baltimore and the UK. And I spent 2.5 years at Gartner as an advisor on the future of work. So really happy to be part of this group.
Great, thanks, Rich.
Right.
Jeff.
You would think I would have my mute button faster. Jeffrey Moss, founder and CEO of an organization called Parker Dewey. We do micro internships, essentially gig-based work between college students and companies that companies use as a way to obviously get work done, but also to identify, engage, and audition people who maybe they want to hire. Was introduced to this through our friends at Open Assembly. Excited to be here and hopefully learn some more and maybe even contribute a bit.
Yeah, welcome, Jeffrey. Ricardo.
Hey guys, nice to meet you all. It's my first time here. I'm based in Brazil, São Paulo. I am actually an ex-student from Professor Tushman at PLD, Harvard Business School. And I came across this group in a way to support me on this challenge that I just joined, Hotmart in Brazil. It's a company for those based in US, you may recall Teachable. It's a recent company that we are in a way integrating within our group. And that's it. I'm here to learn and exchange experience in a way to support my job, my challenge here. Thanks.
Welcome. Mary, you're not new, but you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's been a while and there's a lot of new faces, so I thought I'd reintroduce and apologize I'm not on video. Hello, everyone. Mary Molino. I've been involved with Open Assembly for a couple years now. I am the solopreneur and chief discovery officer at my company called RiseMind, where I provide on-demand innovation and special projects support for executive teams who are looking to grow 10x and do so differently with innovative techniques. I am also doubling down on new work system design. I think we are just at a tipping point where the market is finally ready for open and talent adoption at scale. And as a change scientist and disruption designer, I am excited to be on that journey.
Good to see you again, Mary, or hear from you again. Ed.
Hi, everyone. It's my first time joining. I heard about this through Open Assembly. I think I met John Windsor probably like 3 years ago on a sort of introductory through a referral through another company called freelancer.com. And so my background is in procurement and vendor management and global sourcing. I've done this for about 4 different industries. I'm currently working at MUFG, which is under the Mitsubishi Banking Corporation. And just interested to know what the future work kind of holds, what the general sentiment is, and what the movement is around third-party engagements as well.
All right, we'll drop your info in the chat. And Rocio. Oh, you're on mute. Did I pronounce that right?
Oh, yes. Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you very much. Very good job. So, hi, everybody. Happy to be here. We were introduced, my partners and I at Overflow. We were introduced to the Open Assembly by John Younger. I always mess with his name and make him a singer. The thing is, we are a platform in the open work economy space, and we are a platform that focuses specifically in strategic strategies working in areas from marketing to innovation to design and communications. And we have as a specific goal to provide diversity of thought and diversity of backgrounds to the solution of problems in those spaces, problems related to marketing or innovation. And we bring together these different thinkers to collaborate and to collide around problems and around issues out there. So I will write the website so you can take a look.
Great, thanks for coming. That was great.
No, thank you for having me, sir.
Okay, great meeting you last week.
Yes,
likewise. Well, Barry, I'm going to pass the mic to you and let you take it from here. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Great to see so many new faces.
Yeah, it's great.
Again. So there was a couple of updates I thought would be useful. I know whether those in the UK saw that Cal Adamson at Distributed just got a good chunk of investment from BT. I think it was 30 million quid. So great to see that. Those guys are on a bit of a roll. We must get Cal to come to these sessions, but great to see Distributed doing so well. And great to see Jeffrey here. Thanks. Jeffrey just did a great podcast with Eleanor and I a second ago. So thank you very much for that, Jeffrey. Appreciated that. We had a great conversation, including talking about tattoos and tequila. So, and a good recommendation for your favorite tequila, which we will be trying. So we're going to hand over to Mr. Heaney. So Connor, I think you're going to give us a bit of an update on a survey that you guys have just done, right?
Yes, that's correct, Barry. And Barry, if I could just thank yourself, Brandon, and all the team at Open Assembly for the support in bringing the survey to everyone's attention in USA and UK. We really appreciate the partnership and the support. So thanks a million, as they say in Ireland, right? So we'll get to it because everyone's time's precious. So hello, everyone. My name is Conor Heaney. I'm the Regional CEO at CXC Global EMEA. We're a part of the Open Talent movement. We primarily provide payroll and compliance related services for the enterprise type company and also for a number of platforms. Back in November of 2021, we launched a survey in relation to some of the future work trends, and our survey is called the Labour Trends Report. It's very imaginatively named, as you can tell. We surveyed 1,200 HR professionals, procurement buyers, platform CEOs, and staffing experts in 5 continents. And we now have the reports to share with this group. So from a high level, some really interesting information. Thank you, Conor. Sorry, I've got my colleague, Conor Lavelle, who's the slide driver today. So thanks very much, Conor. Thank you. And Conor's sharing the PDF report. So guys, the Labour Trends Report really focused on remote working, international hiring, the utilization of digital labour platforms, and the utilization of freelancers within digital labour platforms. And as you guys are probably all aware, there's been a number of reports from the International Labour Organization on the increased use of digital labour platforms. And our survey has really aligned with those previous reports from the International Labour Organization. So out of the 1,200 people that we surveyed, most organizations were moving to a hybrid remote working model. Over 50%, in fact, and around 30% were moving towards a fully remote model. And this surprises me in a way because I spend a lot of time with people, peers in the human capital sector, in the platform economy. And most of the people we're speaking with on a daily basis want to go fully remote, and they believe in fully remote, and that hybrid work is in some way redundant. And it was quite interesting to see organizations, largely in the majority, moving towards the hybrid remote working model. In a way, it gives me and us some comfort that some organizations aren't going fully remote, because we're quite concerned about government legislation that's seeking to enshrine remote working or the right to remote work in countries such as Ireland, where I'm normally based from, and the Netherlands. There's some draft legislation on the table. And the reason we're concerned about the right to remote work is that we're worried that it might create a two-tier economy, particularly for those workers that operate in the deskless world. And what I mean by that is workers that are driving the buses, driving the cars, preparing the meat in the factories, preparing the drugs in the factories. My worry and our worry is that those workers will be in some way forgotten about if the right to remote work comes into the equation. But I had a question really for the group. Are you guys surprised in relation to this survey that most of the respondents are moving towards a hybrid model as opposed to a fully remote model? Any comments on this?
I can take, at least get us going. It is a great conversation that most of our companies are having, but again, it's not it is understandable given that real estate cost is the second largest cost for most companies, that if they are able to figure out ways to get work done without people showing up in the offices and having offices, it's a huge way to bend the cost curve that they have, improve margins. And also most of the reasons we're doing that is because the people that we want to hire want to have the option to not come into the office. If we force them to come into the office, they're not taking our jobs.
I have a question. Did we ask how many of them support being fully back on site? Did we ask that question and find the number was 0, or do we not even ask?
Good question. Connor, over to you for that one.
Yeah, we didn't ask that question in this survey.
And by the way, I presume the number would be 0 anyway, because I think everyone has sort of realized the benefits of hybrid and giving the flexibility. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I think this is Chris, just to chime in. The two thoughts, guys. One would be, it doesn't indicate here the industries, right? I mean, we're talking about, I'm assuming, well-paid white-collar jobs, and figuring out which elements of the hybrid model are actually, can customer service agents now be doing this from home the way that JetBlue's been doing it? All these Amazon jobs that people keep talking about, I don't know if those can be done remote or you have to go into a warehouse. But the other thing is at least in our space, which is the marketing and advertising space, early attempts at forcing people back were violently backfired. And I think it made a lot of people very gun shy. And so in an effort to stop the complaints, the public backlash, the cancel culture, as different CEOs have been shamed, it was like, whoa, okay, now it almost seems like it's politically incorrect to kind of have any sort of timetable or expectation. Even somebody as big as Apple, Tim Cook, had to backpedal and say, my bad, we're not going to do it. So I don't know how long this lasts. I think is going to be, when does it become politically acceptable again, if ever, to say that just for a company to have some sort of an edict.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chris. And we looked at a very narrow range of people, if that makes sense, in that 1,200 survey group. Typically, the people would have been working, I guess, in the knowledge white collar workers that can work remotely really without any issue, right? but my guess is if we had surveyed 1,200 bus conductors or people working on a factory line, they might have had a very different answer, of course. So it's a very narrow data set that we sampled and surveyed, and specific to certain role types as well. Does anyone?
Connor,
Yes.
did you ask the
Chris.
companies or the workers?
We asked typically executives or HR professionals or staffing, industry management or leadership, procurement professionals that are specializing in contingent workers. So we didn't sample our actual own freelancer base in our own company. That probably would have been a good starting point, Chris, actually.
Thanks.
Connor, was there any, I don't know if you looked at this, differences in geographies, for example, between the US and Europe?
Connor, did we segment by geography?
No, we didn't. It was an anonymized survey, and location wasn't taken into account.
If you're doing it again, I think what would be interesting is really what type of hybrid model, because I think there's a huge variability in the interpretation of what hybrid means. Is it 2-3? Is it 3-2? Is it anytime you want to come? How do you balance it against teamwork? So I think the more we can move beyond the just hybrid, it doesn't really tell you much, to the specific models people use, and to look at this definitely by industry, because there are industries like architectural and design that they need to be on present. For them, it's very difficult to work remotely. So analysis by industry type, or at least clusters of industries, those who can work completely remotely versus those that need more teamwork and hands-on, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment, Jerry. I see a note. John, you've got a point to make there, John Heaney.
I just think in what Jerry kind of tipped on there, and it goes even to Balaji, your comment there of the why people are coming back, why are they going to the office becomes really important for what people are looking at. I think what we've seen is people failing miserably when they declare, I'm going to go 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is, without a reason behind it. But I know MIT just published some good information that showed that in the end, it was the 3-day week was what the workers seemed to be asking for most, 3 days being remote and having the flexibility around how they were operating there. I think it's continuing to dig deeper to understand the why underneath it that I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Is there a question from Link? Is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Link,
Going back to the comment and some of the comments that Jerry had made too is, we might assume that everybody would want to be hybrid or remote and not want to return to the office. But I can almost guarantee you that this survey is not collecting the information of those people that want to be in person at work. And that amount is high, and those people are not taking the surveys because they're too busy at in-person work to take the surveys. And this is reflective in the healthcare field, where especially mental health field, where these people really suffered. The people actually providing the counseling, the workers, actually suffered the worst through the pandemic more than the community they served. Because the community they served, if they suffered with depression, they were fine being home and just as long as they were talking to somebody. But it was those mental health professionals that work daily and support each other in the workplace and can jump over to the next person's office. There's something to be said about that in-person human interaction, where somebody that is providing human-based services is going to need that in-person interaction much more than, say, the person that is doing more the kind of analytical or processing or data entry or whatever the case may be, where they need to be work on more project-based work. So I think we do need to look at, when we're looking at this kind of analysis, is to really look at industries and the types of workers. But we're talking about that heavily at CTW now, is looking at the types of workers and how we can analyze across the different dimensions of the types of work and workers. So just some thoughts there. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I can clarify, I think to just bring some of these perspectives together, there is one extreme where you have to be in person to get your job done. The location matters to the execution of work. They should be in person exactly as they're designed to be. There is the completely offline remote people like the call center workers, and one of the examples is the QA workers. There's never really a question of should they be in person, or at least it was even pre-pandemic. They were always remote. They will continue to be remote. But there is this middle bucket of people where they could always get their job done remotely, but they were always in person, because that's the culture that we all lived in. I think a lot of these questions functionally are meant for those people. And sometimes we make implications on either of these two sides, which actually it's a logical question of where they should be working. Let's talk about the gray area, which is where I think there's a lot more discussion, nuances, differences of opinion.
Yeah, Chris, you've got your hand up there, Chris.
Yeah. I was just wondering whether there might be a different reason for people to come to the office rather than efficiency. If it has to do with the corporate culture, and how do you maintain a corporate culture with everybody dispersed? Of course, some companies thrive on that culture. But last year I worked in a bank as an interim manager, and I really felt that the people were kind of losing the connection with working in that bank. And so I was wondering what your views are on. So they want to go back to hybrid working, not because people needed to be in the office to do the work, but basically to kind of feel part of the bank and work in the way that the bank wanted them to work. So it's more about belonging and culture rather than efficiency of work.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Chris. But Balaji's making a great point around culture here. What I found Chris, in our own organization in Europe is that we are fully remote and have been fully remote since our foundation in Europe, right, 7 years ago. And we've had no problem or issue creating a strong and firm culture, right? Now, when I say we're fully remote, we've got hubs where people can go into, right? But they're never mandated to go there unless we got a team meeting. So it works well for us. But I'm thinking about companies that have went fully remote where there is no hubs to go to, no collaboration physically, like companies such as GitLab and Auth0, for example. I don't know if our audience are familiar with those sort of companies, but can you guys think of any companies that are really successful with a fully remote workforce that never physically meets anywhere?
Yes. Altasian just went public. They're completely remote. They've never had an office. They've never had a headquarters, and they're working just fine. We as a company, we went from being heavily in person to mostly remote. We've had the best year of our lives. So I think there's a lot of examples that exist. It's just that I think we're still clutching back to that concept of office because that's what we've grown up as being. It isn't functional to the performance of an individual or a company. We have to separate those two at some point.
Yeah. Do you think, guys, Balaji, I know you've been speaking a lot, but yeah, I always love what you have to say. But do you think there's a generational divide? Like I'm Generation X, I'm 41. I look a lot older, right? But for me, I like remote working, but I also like the ability to drop in and out. But from speaking to teammates that are in their 20s and also recruiting at the moment across Europe, people don't want to even meet in person. Like we've had so many people turn us down, even though we think we're sort of cool employers for being almost fully remote. They're just like, I don't want to talk to anyone physically. Is anyone else experiencing those sort of problems? Or does anyone think there's a generational divide here between Generation X, Y, and Z?
We spend almost 100% of our time dealing with college kids, and they want the relationships. They want it to, like, again, people say, yeah, I don't want to talk to anyone. I would question what roles, and beyond that, I would question if they're an employee I want. Like I not the right person. Like if you just want to sit in a room and code all day, God bless, but I don't think you're the right employee for just about any company because you lose so much of it. You lose the sense for what the customer really wants or for what other teams need. And for all of the talk about how well certain companies have done remote, like I get it, I hear it, but I also wonder how much is left on the table because of the ad hoc interactions that don't take place. The Jeff in sales bumping into the Sally from marketing. We could talk about Slack being great. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I think when we talk about the young versus old, like young folks just aren't as black and white about this, right? And I think that's where we all are getting sucked into this black and white. It's got to be one way or the other. And the reality is there's a lot of variability in what your job is, what your personality type is, what your team dynamic is, what your relationship with your boss is. And I think what's really coming out here is a lot of people are finding this alternative to work really well in various situations, all the way from hybrid to fully remote, but that everyone is finding value in this. I think from the younger perspective, they're not locked into this is the only way to have organic, bumping into somebody at the water cooler. This isn't the only way to get work done. This isn't the only way to actually find mentors, because we're seeing a lot of that stuff move online. Just the fact that when we had to start this meeting, we put everybody in rooms to collide. That's a water cooler technique, right? That's that kind of trying to get that thing. So there's a lot of different pieces to this. But I think being part of that older generation, I do know there's a security blanket around the in-person experience, because that's what we've known and think has been successful for a long time. But I'm starting to doubt it now.
Yeah.
So I have an example I want to jump in, because I literally had this conversation with someone I mentor from my business school, a young woman who was faced with the choice of a fairly high-paying consulting job upon graduation from her MBA, or something that was located in Chelsea in Manhattan. And when we boiled it down, Chelsea was going to pay a lot less. But what she really wanted was that in-person interaction. Like, young people have a way more intense need for socialization, and then perhaps I'll say we do. Because when she presented the choices to me, in my world, if it was me, I would have 100% taken the consulting job. But after we talked through what's really important to her, that in-person socialization, the fact that she would have been by herself with this one job, she completely rejected it.
Thank you, Sheila. Sheila, appreciate the comments there. Mark and DJ, they've been patiently waiting. So Mark, over to you, sir. Good
Yeah,
to
I
see
was just going to say, and I believe in a lot of the discussions that are going on here on the side related to water cooler conversations and de Blasio's point about being debunked and the collaboration tools improving. But I was going to just share, a lot of this has to do with how we measure productivity, and certainly the COVID environment has had us jump and accelerate a lot of the things that we can do in a hybrid or in a remote environment. I had a discussion with somebody in a high-tech firm late last year, and she actually had some quantifiable data, and it was related to their patents. And she said that their patent counts went way down during a COVID environment, and because of that, they would not move to a hybrid work environment. And I suppose you could argue there are other factors during COVID that impacted those things, but because of how they were measuring their productivity related to patents or new technology patents, they felt like they were unable to collaborate and be as productive, which I thought was interesting in terms of not, we could talk about these water cooler things and being unquantifiable, but in that sense, they were choosing to move away from remote as soon as they could because they thought their patent counts were down.
That's interesting, Mark. And DJ, we'll come to you in a second. I just like to throw my 2 cents in here. I've got a somewhat counterintuitive view on the water cooler approach. I think remote working gets rid of a lot of the bullshit, right? What you did at the weekend, someone putting their fish dinner in the microwave, or the fish, whatever the hell it is, all those petty things that people hate about working in the office. Remote working has really removed those, and I think that's to the good, right? But I suppose that's not to everyone's taste, and maybe it wouldn't be put so crudely. So forgive me cursing on the call. But anyway, DJ, over to you, sir.
Yeah, so thank you first of all for the great conversation. If you see me looking sideways, because I have 2 big monitors, and so I have all of you on the big monitor that I have here. So I do agree with Steve, right, to start with. It's not just black and white, right? So my last job was at Salesforce, and because of the pandemic, I handled one of the very complex projects, and we never knew whether we were going to be successful, right? And I think the pandemic kind of threw us into that experience. It kind of forced upon us in terms of its limitation, and it forced us to kind of see through that tunnel in terms of what is possible and what is not possible, right? So to a certain degree, yes, it's kind of given us that confidence in terms of we could handle everything remotely, but I still don't think that's kind of true, because we as humans are creatures of our own habit, but that connectivity is very essential to us, right? So what we did see is we were very successful in executing a complex project, which kind of ran around 6 regions, right? 8 different teams that are distributed all across the globe. And we were still being able to execute it. But also at the same time, where we were conscious, where we created these hubs to actually go and meet up with people over 2 days period of time. And we brought people together over lunches or dinner wherever it was possible, right? And that connection, what we saw is the change in the dynamics of the teams, right? So yes, you're working with someone for a period of 6 to 8 months remotely, and now you meet with that person, even if it means one time. That relationship changes in terms of the camaraderie that it builds, right? So to me, going completely remote kind of makes sense, but still creating a flexible structure where you need to keep on looking at the pulse of your organization and create these opportunities for people to come and meet physically, maybe once in a while, is very important, right? The only other thing, if one comment that I can make is, we are seeing a drastic challenge in terms of hiring, right? Because people's expectations have changed and people are willing to be hybrid in the location that they are, but they're not willing to move to another location just because of that hybrid route after the pandemic, right? So it's become very challenging to hire people and set the expectations as we kind of move forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment, DJ. Thanks for sharing. Rich, over to you. I know you're building a high-performing startup at the moment, right? So what's your take on this? Does fully remote work, or what's working for you guys?
So we've done an interesting experience in this one. So, I was previously, before COVID, I worked at Gartner, and pretty much we were fully remote. Sales, some of the sales teams not, but all the analysts, everybody's remote, right? And that worked fine. And then building a company during the pandemic. So we started off with the view that we will be a fully remote first. We'll be fully remote, right? And most of the mentors that we use through the program, the advisors and the investors, we still to this day have not met these people who have, believed in us and helped us a ton. Some for no benefit of their own, have helped us. Now, so our view was like, look, we're going to be a remote first company. Now, we're obviously we're bringing in a lot of software developers, a lot of data scientists. Now, obviously, there's a tech crisis, especially in the UK. So, we have had to hire from graduate apprentice schemes. Luckily, there's a lot of good graduate apprentice schemes in the UK. There's also in Scotland a thing called Code Clan, which takes people and retrains them as software developers. So it's awesome, right? Good name. So we've made a lot of the hires that we've made through these programs. And we said to them when they started, we'd done a kind of poll, right, saying, look, we are a remote first company. And when we sat down and actually talked to these people who are changing their career or they're new in, and I wouldn't say they're all young, right? Some of these people are retraining and they're in their early 30s and 40s. And so I wouldn't say they're like 21-year-olds. In fact, most of them aren't. And everybody said, we would like to have some time. We'd like the flexibility to meet up, to work as a team. So we actually then went and leased an office, and I actually can't get them out of it, which I honestly was totally surprised at. Like I choose to work mostly remote. It's how I feel most productive. But I said most days, there's 4 or 5, maybe sometimes 10 of them in a huddle in the office through choice. So I think it goes back to what we said. It's a choice thing, right? But I was really surprised at that, but the amount of positivity and I think learning that comes from it, especially if you're new in a job, right? If you've been doing a job for 15, 20 years, then I think remote's great. But if you've just like reskilled, I don't know. So that's what we found. I said, I think it goes back down to personal choice and giving people the option, right?
Yes. Thank you, Rich. And I'd just like to echo what Steve Rader said. He's off the call, but we've achieved a lot in this group through remote collaboration. Rich, thanks for your contribution. David, you've got your hand up. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just an observation. In the company I work for, it's maybe more traditional. It's Swiss. It's in the pharmaceutical industry, but like many corporations, they slashed the budget for travel because, hey, who needs to travel? We have all these tools. But then they say, well, we really want you back in the office, which is a little bit schizophrenic because it's like, you don't need to travel because you have the tools, but you need to be in the office, which is, hard to understand. Just an interesting observation. But also in my team, I have some of the people have said, can we do our next LT leadership team physically in the office? Because they're at home and they're basically, I think, depressed being all alone in their apartment, and they want to actually get to see some people. I personally I don't think I could probably count the number of days I worked at home prior to COVID and in 30 years career. Never asked for it, never wanted it. And now that I've done it, I love it. And I really don't want to go back to the office. So it's really weird. I would never have guessed that. Whereas those people who want to go back to the office because for mental health reasons, to mix and see other people. And so I think it's very individual. Everybody has a different point of view. I think you just need to allow people that choice. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to lose some good people, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary, David. And I think in all the webinars that we've done and all the discussions we've had in relation to the Labour Trends Report, we barely get past the first slide. This is the most contentious issue of our time, but I think there's a common consensus that hybrid is the way to go. Generally speaking, I suppose our survey shows that, again, with a very limited data set of respondents. Arthur, if you're still on the call, I know you've made a number of really interesting comments on the chat. Would you care to summarize, Arthur, your view on the remote working piece?
Sure. Yeah, happy to jump in. I mean, my general thought, and I mean, honestly, I think others have echoed it in different ways, is that, you know, remote working is to me about relinquishing control, right? So folks have made the point, you know, that it's not necessarily about being remote only, right? Some people want to be in the office, some people don't. To me, you know, I don't want to speak, I could probably speak for 20 minutes on the different comments I've made, but more or less, I see it as just relinquishing control, right? Which we all know. We talk about it in this group all the time about why people want to go into freelancing, because they don't want to be told when, where, how, what to do at work, right? You know, they want to choose. So I'll leave it there, but happy to chat with anybody on my thoughts in a different forum.
Thank you, Arthur. Appreciate it. Barry, before we hand back to you and Brandon, I wouldn't mind hearing, and hopefully you guys are the same. We've got one of our younger members, Hannah Young from Ireland. Hannah, you had an interesting point that you raised there. Would you care to discuss it in some more detail?
Hi, Connor. Sure. What one are you referring to, just so I'm hitting the the right point?
I think it was about young people and access to opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know when young graduates, they fresh out of college, they want to kind of start their lives and leave home perhaps. They're looking for the best opportunities, which may perhaps aren't the best paying to begin with. So it might be a thing where you can get a really good opportunity somewhere, but may have to work remote from wherever you are. So I think remote work is a great way to access certain opportunities while you kind of work your way up through that career ladder.
Thank you. Guys, I think we've taken up most of the call. Connor has a link to our actual survey, which is a bit more detailed than one slide. We've got a number of slides to go through, but I appreciate we're coming up to the hour. So Barry, Brandon, we'll hand back to you. Thank you, folks.